Hello and welcome to the Two-Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And we will start this week, as we always do, with the news. And I think the first thing we need to talk about is the fact that JR basically released the information that AEW will have a 2-hour weekly TV show that will debut on a, quote, key cable station in October. Now, according to The Observer, in sort of news that came out today, they are in negotiations with Turner, so it could possibly be them, or it could possibly be somebody else, but this is still huge news either way.
I think either way this is massive news. I mean, we already knew, per The Observer and from Dave Meltzer, that AEW were in negotiations with a large TV channel, and that it would be the biggest channel that had held wrestling since WCW. And obviously, if it is indeed Turner, then that totally makes sense. Turner obviously has a very long and extensive history with professional wrestling on that channel, on that station. So it would be quite cool to see wrestling back on there and a legitimate alternative to WWE back on a major station. We'll obviously see where it goes. I mean, the report that I saw from Dave Meltzer said that, you know, there hadn't been actually any agreements made yet with Turner, but the fact that they're negotiating with Turner just, again, it just legitimises AEW as a legitimate threat going forward, and I think WWE see them as that already.
Definitely. And next we have the fact that Road Dogg has quit as lead writer of SmackDown. Kind of interesting, kind of came out of nowhere. He's been one of the, shall I say, biggest defenders of the product on social media, so for him to actually quit was kind of a surprise to me. I don't think the lead writer role is what it was in the past, in the sense of I don't think the fact that Road Dogg is leaving will see a substantial change to SmackDown and how the show ends up being, because I think at this point Vince is so de facto in charge of everything to the minute detail. At the end of the day, Vince might as well just be lead writer of both shows.
Yeah, Paul Heyman said before that there may be a lead writer, but the head writer is Vince, and nothing gets through without Vince's say so. I mean, this is a surprise because obviously, like you say, he's been one of the main defenders of the product. I don't know how you can defend the product. I mean, SmackDown's been better than Raw, but it's still not great.
But you've got to remember, this is the man that told us we were cheering for the wrong person when they turned Becky heel last year. So, you know, he was quite high on the defensive side of things.
Foresight.
Oh, yes. And we also had news that R.D. Evans has quit the company. He posted that on Twitter earlier today, that he'd quit WWE. Supposedly, the story behind it is that he quit before he was fired because he was the producer of a segment at the Hall of Fame in which the word Vince was said quite a bit.
Wow.
And I did hear rumours from, I believe Sean Waltman was on a radio show, and apparently he said in order to try and diffuse the situation, DX said Vince a ton of times during their Hall of Fame induction at the end to try and sort of dilute the subject, but apparently that wasn't good enough, so RD was on the verge of being fired, so he just up and quit before he was fired.
He's jumped before he was pushed.
Exactly.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
It just goes to show, like, Vince's
lack of touch and pettiness.
Yeah, just he's got to be one of the worst bosses to work for in that sense, because he's such
temperamental. Yeah,
he's almost deranged in ways, just
like,
the way he goes on.
Like, why would you fire someone because they mentioned your name? Like, his name is Vince.
Yeah, and I get that, you know, if you are the owner of a company and you set the rules, workers should abide by those rules, no matter how stupid they think those rules are. It goes back to the thing I always have the argument when footballers get booked for taking the shirt off. I don't get why they get booked for taking the shirt off.
But them's the rules.
But they're the rules, so why are these players doing it? So I do get it from that perspective, but at the same time, RD's producing a segment. At the end of the day, surely the heat should fall on the talent that have gone out there and actually said it, but because the talent in Vince's eyes must be untouchable in this sense. We don't know who it was. There has been rumours it was Brett's segment, but because of who it is that was on stage, regardless of who it was, Vince has taken his anger out on the producer, which to me just seems unfair.
Yeah, I agree.
We have also had the news this week, switching to Impact, that Eli Drake has been fired. This story sort of came about because they had advertised for one of the Mania weekend shows that Impact were doing, Tessa Blanchard versus Eli Drake in an intergender match, and apparently Eli wasn't down with that. Now, intergender wrestling's not for everyone. It doesn't bother me. You know, I'm quite easy. I'll sit here and watch. Some of my favourite matches in PWG involve Candice LeRae.
It's a controversial topic, though, at the moment.
But it is a controversial topic, and if anybody's not comfortable with going in there and working with a person of the opposite sex, then that's their business. But supposedly, and I haven't seen Eli's Twitter, but supposedly Eli kind of buried the company and a lot of people in there on social media, and that is the overarching reason why at the end of the day he's kind of being fired for this, which is a lot more understandable than the last firing we've just talked about.
Yeah, because that's genuinely unprofessional.
Yeah. And we've also had a report come out, I believe it was Fightful.com that reported this, that the referee from the main event, Rod Zapata, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly,
Easy for you to say.
was supposedly fined for sort of the botched Mania main event finish.
I'm not sure what I think of this.
Me neither. I can see both sides of the story, because the referees, so far as I'm aware, for years now have been told to treat everything like a shoot. So in theory, he should have stopped counting when Ronda's shoulders were down. So that may be why he's being fined. But if it was the fact that he continued counting when Ronda was meant to kick out at the end, if that is the case, because that's the story that's been reported, then that becomes a bit more ridiculous, because you're telling somebody to treat it like a shoot, and then when Ronda doesn't kick out, you find the guy who did his job, essentially.
Oh, so that wasn't meant to be the finish?
That was what Fightful have reported.
Because I thought they were going along the lines of he should have stopped counting when Ronda's shoulders popped up, because then I would have had a problem, because I'd have kind of been like, yeah, but can you imagine the effect that would have had on the workers if he then called that as a shoot? Because they'd have then been like, cool, what's my finish?
But supposedly the finish was actually meant to be that Ronda kicked out of that, battled back and forth a bit more, Ronda got dumped to the outside, and Becky tapped Charlotte out with the disarm her.
Which would have been better.
Yeah.
And then would have kept Ronda spare for the rematch.
Like I said, that's just a report from Fightful. I believe Meltzer's confirmed the referee was fined, but he hasn't mentioned anything about the finish, so at least to my knowledge. So we don't know how true that is, but it was certainly an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have another one that isn't officially confirmed, at least by WWE at the time of recording this podcast, but it has been reported that Dasha Fuentes has been released from the company.
Yeah, it's just quite like Dasha's more than fine in her role. I can't say that I love Dasha and her work or anything like that, but it's a shame to see anyone else lose their jobs.
Yeah. To be honest, a lot of their backstage interviewers are very much of a muchness.
They're all the same.
They're very robotic, a lot of them, so I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the way they're taught to be, and I never like to see anybody lose their job, but Dasha never really did anything that made her stand out to me. She was no Mean Gene Oakland. The girl that got in recently, Sarah Schreiber, I actually think she's one of the best they've had in a long time. Like, we always talked about Renee being the gold standard for sort of the modern generation. I think Kayla Braxton's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
The rest of them kind of all mush together, and Dasha kind of fit into that crew, so as much as I'm sad to see anybody lose their job, it's not something I'm going to massively lose sleep over.
Yeah, I agree.
And with that, I think it's time we move on to our review of Monday Night Raw. This was the Raw after WrestleMania, but boy, it didn't really feel that way.
Yeah, you wouldn't have. But it was the same last year, if you remember. Like, last year was not an out of this world Monday Night Raw either.
Very true, very true. So we opened the show with Seth freaking Rollins. He talked about the mountain he climbed last night and how terrible he felt today. He referenced the low blow, but didn't really explain his actions very well. The crowd chanted full-time champ at him, and he says Brock and Paul can stay in Vegas because he will be a fighting champ. The New Day's music then hit to an enormous reaction. Big E did the splits. No joke, Big E did the splits.
Yeah, it was cool.
That was incredible. Kofi said watching Mania's main event gave him an idea. Him versus Seth, winner takes all, tonight. No New Day, no Shield, just them two. Rollins accepts. The crowd loved this, as did I. To be honest, I thought this was a really good opening segment. I didn't really get why Kofi was there, but they've kind of just went, nah, what brand split?
Yeah,
so
it was a fine opening segment. I think I would have liked Rollins to address what he'd done a little bit more. I wonder whether they're going to turn him heel, and that's part of it. I don't think they should, really, but I wonder whether that's part of it. And Kofi coming out was cool. He got a massive pop, as he was always going to, and then they built the match for the main event. But we'll talk about that later on in our review.
Yeah. On Seth's explanation, that was sort of the way he put it was he did it before Brock could do it to him. But surely as the babyface, he's meant to be better than the heel.
Yeah, you're meant to be smart, but not in the way that you cheat before you cheated on.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't make sense. No. Like what would have happened is the babyface should do something that then means that the heel can't cheat.
And you know what? If Rollins had low blowed Brock, I wouldn't have minded it so much if Brock had low blowed him first. Because that way it's just, well, you did it to me, so an eye for an eye type of situation. But that's not what that was on Sunday. So next up, we had a rematch for the tag team titles between new champions Hawkins and Ryder and the Revival. This was your bog standard tag match early. The Revival hit a lovely heart attack for 2. They hit a brainbuster on Hawkins on the floor and then worked over Ryder in the ring. He fought back and got a tag to Hawkins, but Revival didn't realise and hit Shatter Machine on Ryder. Hawkins got the roll-up for the retention. Much like their match at Mania, this wasn't great, but it was more than serviceable. And I feel like the Revival need a change of scenery in the Superstar Shake-Up.
Yeah, I totally agree. This was a more than serviceable tag match. I thought the work that led into the finish was quite nice in terms of the blind tag and, you know, Revival still going for Shatter Machine and that leading into the roll-up. I thought it was a more than fine match. I'm still annoyed that it's happened, but we're going to go with it. It's happened. And I think you're right. I think Revival are going to SmackDown in the Superstar Shake-Up, and I look forward to that because I look forward to them actually being given a shot to do something legitimately worthwhile. Rant over.
So next up we had Baron Corbin. The crowd chanted words at him that I can't repeat on this podcast. He proved Angle doesn't belong in the same ring as him, and he's now better than an Olympian. He wants a gold medal of his own. This brought out Kurt. He said Corbin was the better man on Sunday and wishes him luck. Bad luck. He hits an Angle slam and makes Corbin tap to the ankle lock. Lars Sullivan then debuts. They have a really awkward stare down until Lars hits him with the freak accident and follows up with a diving headbutt from the top. I would have preferred to get a nice send-off for Angle, to be honest, but I'm glad Lars seems to have worked through his issues and finally managed to make his debut.
Right, so my feelings on this are a little bit different to yours, but sort of in a straight way along kind of similar lines. So I thought it was a really cool moment what they did for Angle, and Angle sort of getting a little bit of comeuppance and then being able to go out on top. Like, when I saw that part of the segment, I was like, oh, cool. Because, like, you know, Angle lost last night, but, you know, give him a cool moment on his way out and let the crowd chant at him on his way out and, you know, let him hit his big moves.
To be honest, I feel like Angle was worthy of a proper ceremony.
I do too.
Like Flair's retirement.
Yeah, I do too.
Him tapping out Corbin was fine, but, like, I really feel like they should have had, you know, some of his biggest rivals in the ring and, you know, celebrating his career, really.
Well, what we talked about as well was the ideal thing would have been doing that kind of ceremony if they could have got Brock there for Brock to come out and everyone thinks that Brock's going to, you know, attack Angle. And in the end, Brock, like, shakes Angle's hand and says, you know, you were my greatest opponent, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. I didn't hate. I'm glad that Lars has debuted on the main roster after all of his issues. I'm really glad that he's been able to do this. And debuting on the Raw after Mania at least got him some big exposure. But are you telling me that there's nobody
else who
could have been destroyed?
Yeah.
Other than Kurt Angle, the one who deserved the send-off. Like, it didn't get Lars any more heat than destroying anybody else would have.
Yeah. Next up, we had Alexa Bliss versus Bayley. Alexa ran down Bayley pre-match, which led to Bayley beating her down. Nothing really happened in this match until Bayley kind of botched a cradle, meaning she had to hold the rope for balance, so the ref didn't count, and Corey destroyed her on commentary.
Corey gave us so much.
Bayley hit a sunset flip buckle bomb, but then Alexa won when she caught Bayley coming in the ring with a DDT. Good to see Alexa back, but this got no time and still, somehow, despite getting no time, managed to stink the joint out.
Yeah, I agree. It's great that Alexa's back. You know that, like, both of us have, but I've got a lot of time for Alexa. I think her character's just brilliant and she's great in her role, but man, this match sucked. And we know Alexa's not the greatest wrestler in the world, but Bayley used to be a lot better than she is now, and she would in the past, I feel, have carried Alexa to a much better match than she did, and it just sucked.
Yeah, it was no good. We had a promo with Becky next. The crowd absolutely loved her. For months, Ronnie and Rick's daughter talked down to her, but last night she walked in with nothing and walked out with everything. She knows how to survive and offers Ronda a rematch when she stops sulking. She says she expects the McMahons to give Charlotte the tag belts to make her feel better.
I love that.
So did I. Lacey happens, but wait, she finally does something. She hits Becky with the woman's right. They brawl all over the ramp and stage until Becky catches her and they disarm her. I have, I'm going to go with less than zero desire to see Lacey versus Becky as Becky's feud coming out of Mania.
This genuinely... I'll go on.
But this segment was very well done.
Yeah, the segment was good. The main thing I will say, though, is that this feels... Do you remember when Bryan won at Mania 30 and we were all like, oh, this is going to be awesome, Bryan's run on top.
And then Kane.
And then started him off with a really bad feud. This feels like that. Like, you're telling me that they couldn't have picked someone better to kick off a feud with Becky Lynch than Lacey.
Apparently they see a lot in Lacey.
I don't. I saw her wrestle at the Rumble. I see very little in Lacey. I think as a manager, I think she'd be really decent, actually. I think her look and everything else would probably fit being a manager or a valet. But not as an active competitor. I do not see it. She was in the Rumble for ages and sucked.
Yeah. Seth cuts a very tweenerish promo backstage stating that this is his show and if Kofi wants both belts, B+ just won't cut it. This is a good promo to sort of build to the main event, which we'll get to in a bit.
At least gives some tension to it and meaning.
And I think it was smart to have Seth be the more heelish of the two.
Because Kofi's the most over guy in the company.
Yeah, exactly. Next up we had Ricochet and Black versus Rude and Gable. I love this because Rude and Gable turned heel during an inset promo. Is that the first time that's ever happened?
Yeah.
They turned heel during an inset promo. What?
Yeah, odd.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm glad that they've turned heel because they've been treading water for ages and Rude's better as a heel and I'm looking for... Has Gable ever been heel?
Him and Jordan were kind of heel to start with, I believe, in NXT when Gable was trying to recruit Jordan to his team. I think the whole ready, willing Gable thing was meant to be a heel thing and it just got over.
Right.
So I do think they were heels to begin with.
But not for any length of time.
But not massively. I mean, his main runs have been as a babyface, but I definitely feel like he could work heel.
I see quite a bit of potential in Gable as a heel. I think possibly with a bit of work with Bobby Roode, he could get a good singles run.
I know he kind of gets the Kurt Angle treatment because of how he wrestles, but I also see a lot of Kurt Angle in Chad Gable as a character as well, in the sense of the goofy heel. I think he'd be really good in that role.
Yeah.
So I am quite looking forward to them being heel. But the crowd had been great up until this point, but like jumped the shark massively with me during this match because they worked a really good tag match and the crowd just chanted random things and did a Mexican wave. Poor form.
Yeah, I agree.
Black hit a Cape Rada for 2. Rude and Ricochet fought up top and Gable sent Ricochet into a lovely double A spinebuster for 2. Rude and Gable hit their neckbreaker splash combo finisher but only got 2. Gable went for Chaos Theory but Ricochet flipped out of it because Ricochet is insane and hit the single leg code breaker for the win. Post-match, Rude beat Ricochet down to cement the heel turn. I thought this was really good and I liked the attack after the match and then Rude just sort of quickly rolling out the ring as soon as Black got in and taking a lifeless Gable with him. I thought it was really well worked.
Yeah, I liked it as well. I think the match was good first off, and then it added to the angle with Gabe and Rude. And I think it was interesting that Rude's being portrayed as sort of like the leader of the heel turn. And I wonder whether Gabe, it'll take a bit of time for Gable to like fully buy into it. But then maybe when he does, like that's the game changer. I think I'm not sure they'll book it that way, but I would.
It would be an interesting way to book it, actually.
And that's when they finally like come together and become successful again, when they both buy in to the evolution of their tag team.
Elias buries rap music and will perform his rock opera tonight. Okay, right, the next segment. We came back from break and we got a dinosaur in a box as Bray Wyatt voice slaps over the top of it. This was straight out of 1993 WWF and not in a good way.
I think
what the hell was this?
It was Gobbledygooker's child.
Just like one of the weirdest and possibly worst things I've seen on Monday Night Raw, and I've seen a lot of bad stuff on this show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that Wyatt's coming back. I do hope that Wyatt's promos have improved in terms of him actually like saying things that mean something.
You mean rather than speaking for 20 minutes and saying nothing?
Not just talking like, it's creepy, man, like when the stars and the moon. Like,
okay, this podcast can't go on for 20 years.
That's basically what Wyatt does, though.
Very true. Next up, we had Lashley versus Ambrose. Leo is lost for his words, so Lashley takes over and tells Dean that when he's gone, Lashley will take care of his wife. They have an actually really awesome brawl with real high intensity. They battled on the stage, and Ambrose hit dirty deeds on the stage and cleared off the announce table, but a Leo distraction allowed Lashley to spear Ambrose and then steal Lars's finisher on his first night, hitting the freak accident on Ambrose through the table. I really liked the brawl though. Like, there was something about the way Ambrose and Lashley fought that made it feel like a fight. You know, too many times it's very much, you know, we talked about it with Miz Shane and Batista Hunter at Mania, where it was very much a lot of
we are moving here, then moving here,
holding each other, and there's sort of punches being thrown. They really, it felt like they were trying to hurt each other, and that's what you want from a brawl. They're overdone now, but when it's done this way, I really like it.
You mean it should look like people are really fighting?
Yeah, it's
stupid idea.
I know. So they then spoiled Sami Zayn's return by showing him walking backstage. Why?
Yeah, it would have got a huge pop as well if they hadn't revealed it.
And
they just don't get these things anymore.
It's
like
it's still got a huge pop, but can you imagine the surprise pop?
Like, they used to get these things. Like, I'm trying, because I have mind blank, but it wasn't before an ad break, was it? That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're desperate to keep people around.
You know what it is?
I couldn't remember.
Nobody draws anymore, and it's an awful fact, but they've made the company the draw, so it doesn't matter who they put on top. It's why when people say, oh, Becky doesn't move the needle, I'm like, yeah, who does?
The company doesn't move the needle.
Brock doesn't move the needle. You know, nobody they put on top. Reigns popped it a little bit when he came back, but it's very much settled down again. Nobody moves the needle. Like you say, Ronda
they've had two of the biggest proven pay-per-view draws of the last 10 years in Brock and Ronda. And they haven't changed anything. You've got to get to a point where you've got to think it's not the talent's fault. Mm-hmm. You like Brock and Ronda drew humongous numbers in 2 different time periods for UFC. Like, they are proven draws if built correctly. Like, it's not the talent anymore.
But so that then negates the argument of showing him before the ad break, because I'm not being funny. Sami Zayn, I love the guy to bits. He's one of my favourites of all time.
Not a draw.
He's not. Nobody's a draw. So
could
why show him before the ad break?
Yeah,
just pointless.
Rubbish.
So Mojo talks to a broken mirror.
Hey,
he has face paint, and at this point in my notes, I've literally wrote, "Is this the worst post-Mania Raw since post-Mania Raws became a thing?"
It was pretty bad up until this point. I found this hilarious just because every time it pops up, I find it funny. He seemed to be angry at himself for not being at WrestleMania, except for the fact that he.
Was he not at WrestleMania? Was he not in the Andre the Giant?
Not that I saw.
Huh.
Yeah. But he seemed to be angry at himself, like, where were you? Well, dude, you've been standing and talking into a mirror for the last month and a half. If you'd come back earlier, you'd probably be at WrestleMania. Doyle.
So Sammy comes out to a nice ovation. Since he missed Mania, where better to return than the post-Mania Raw? He issues an open challenge, which is answered by Balor. The title is on the line in this match. Sammy hit a nice blue thunderbomb for 2, but Balor retaliated with a sling blade and a shotgun dropkick, but missed coup de grace, and Sammy hit the corner exploder. He missed the haluva kick though, and Balor retained after coup de grace. Post-match, Sammy says the fans clearly missed him, but he didn't miss them or this. He calls WWE a toxic environment because of the fans.
Irony.
The fans being the toxic thing about WWE might be the best joke I've heard all week.
Irony, right?
Just... The fans are the toxic.
The fans are the problem.
Yeah.
Did Vince write this segment?
Probably. He's not here to save WWE or take over. He will hold the fans accountable. See you in hell. Really good promo from Sammy.
It was, but I wouldn't have done it. Like, I really, we talked about this earlier in the week. Like, I'd have brought Sammy back as babyface. I think his heel run had kind of run its course. And I think, as you heard from the pop, right, the crowd are ready to cheer him again. They were never really ready to boo him, but they'd become bored of, babyface Sami Zayn because he'd been booked so badly. I'd have brought him back as babyface. He actually delivered his promo extremely well. Like, Zayn's promos have become utterly fantastic.
Very true.
So that's not how I would have done it, but yeah, I mean the match itself was really good because it was Balor and Zayn. What else are you going to get?
Very true. So Sarah Schreiber is backstage and recaps the Becky Lacey stuff from earlier when Dana pops her head in. She says there is a line, and while she may not be at the front, she's certainly not at the back, and when she gets her chance, she'll seize the moment. Like we mentioned on the WrestleMania pod,
She's getting a
clearly
push.
Dana's in line for a little bit of a push. I don't expect her to be winning the title anytime soon, but I do think that she will be sort of more prominent than she's been positioned previously.
And to be fair, she's kind of proven herself a little bit lately. Not in the ring, but in terms of her promos. So
Yeah, this
give her a shot.
one I didn't think was very good, but we have talked in the past about how her promos have been quite good in the build-up. Like when she got destroyed by Ronda, I thought her promo before that was really good. This one was...
I speak like this, and I'm reading off a script that I remembered from about 5 minutes ago. That's it's like when you talk, like you just talk fluently, and it just rolls off your tongue and all of that. This didn't feel it. It was like very, very stilted words, and you can tell that she'd literally just read the promo.
She probably just got it 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So Elias here. He raps. It's no Dr. Thugonomics, but it does the job. His last line is, the next person to interrupt me is a dead man.
Insert pop.
So Undertaker obliges. The crowd goes absolutely nuts as Taker gets 4 or 5 large pops.
Yeah.
Elias goes to leave, but decides against it and pays as Taker lays him out with a big boot before hitting the chokeslam and the tombstone. Undertaker looked in great shape, but we didn't get much of a chance to see what his mobility was like, so I wouldn't be getting too excited just yet.
No, but this was just awesome.
Awesome.
I agree, though. Physically, I said this to you earlier in the week again. Like physically, it's the best that I've seen Taker in years. He looked legitimately in good shape again. Now, obviously, we've talked about this earlier in the week. Again, you can be in good shape. Doesn't mean you're in ring shape or that you're in any way physically capable of going in a match.
Yeah, it's more the mobility with Taker that's really been what's hurt him sort of since Punk at Mania 29. Really, it's the lack of mobility. Yeah. Which he was always quite a mobile big man, not in the way we see the likes of Keith Lee and people like that being mobile
dove over
big
the
men
top
today.
rope, though.
But he was always a very mobile big man, and his mobility's really let him down over recent years. So until we find out that he's got that mobility and agility back, I wouldn't be overly fussed about seeing Taker in the ring again.
It is amazing when he's like, in theory, Taker should have adapted his ring style now, shouldn't he? And he kind of hasn't. He kind of just does the same Taker moves.
I don't know whether he can though. I mean, it's iconic at this point. Not
True.
In that way, but it is iconic at this point.
True. But yeah, this segment was awesome.
It was really cool. Yeah, easily the best thing on Raw.
So what do you reckon then? Is this segment of the week?
Yeah, I would go along with that, definitely.
Yeah.
It was such a cool moment to just see Taker come out. So unexpected, and was one of the things about this show that actually made it feel like a post-Mania Raw.
What's amazing to me is that genuinely when Taker comes out and does his entrance, I still get goosebumps.
Yeah.
And it's 29 years after Taker's debut, 28. Like, how do I still get goosebumps watching that man walk very slowly towards a ring?
So next up we had our main event. Seth Rollins defending his Universal Championship against Kofi Kingston, who was defending his WWE Championship. The crowd was so ready for this. They battled up top, but Kofi shoved Rollins off to the floor. He was setting up for the trust fall, but the bar attacked.
For reasons.
Why?
Reasons.
Why?
I told you reasons.
Right. Okay.
I think that's what Vince writes actually in the script. Bar attack for reasons, or bar attack for blank, and then they just never
forgets to fill it in.
They just never fill it in.
Yeah.
I feel like they do that with most weeks, to be honest. This happens because
we'll come back to that later, and then they never come back to it. Yeah.
So the bar attacked, and
the crowd was so over this, and to be honest, I don't blame them.
No, this was bait and switch to an almighty extent.
They chanted obscenities loudly, as well as CM Punk and AEW. This is a nothing happening main event, probably mainly because the crowd now just doesn't care at all. They hijack the match. The bar hit the double team air raid crash, but Rollins makes a save and takes out Sheamus. Kofi cradles Cesaro for 2. Seth then tags in, and Kofi hits Trouble in Paradise before Rollins hits the curb stomp for the win. This was stupid and an awful way to end the biggest Raw of the year.
Yeah, really, really bad. Like, way to just, like, I can't say the word, but irritate your audience. Like, why advertise the biggest match in theory, right? The biggest match in Raw history, and in terms of kayfabe, and then just do a bait and switch. Of course the crowd, because you've told the crowd all night, we're getting a title unification match.
Yeah.
Like, why do this? Like, how could they not? Like, I can't believe that Vince or Triple H or any of the top brass in the company didn't look at this and go, yeah, the crowd's gonna, like, this is the smarkiest crowd of the year. The crowd's gonna turn on this like that. Like, I cannot believe it didn't occur to them.
Bizarre. Totally bizarre. Raw wasn't like outright bad this week. In fact, for a normal week, this would have probably been an above average show, but for a post-Mania Raw...
Raw after Mania?
Yikes.
Like, do you remember, like, the Ziggler Raw after Mania where it was just non-stop awesomeness?
Yeah, I know.
Like, what's... Like, this is 2 years now that the Raw after Mania has sucked, and it's since the brand split, because everyone's on the two shows. It's like they can't think of anything original to do. And, like, every year, the main... Like, two years running now, the main event's been bad.
I think, as well, it's very much around the idea of post-Mania Raws was unexpected returns and unexpected debuts.
And now we've got the
And because we've got the Superstar Shake-Up in a week's time, and I think it was relatively close last year as well.
Yeah.
They don't want to do these unexpected returns or unexpected debuts because they're doing them on the Superstar Shake-Up.
So do something that's unexpected, but just do it in other ways.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
then don't do something unexpected and then bait and switch the crowd.
Obviously, they're not creative enough to think of that.
They used to be.
So hopefully the Superstar Shake-Up does just that next week, because man, Raw is in a rut right now.
Yeah, it needs it. But then SmackDown could really do with some fresh faces too.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially with the move to Fox, it really needs some fresh faces.
So Raw viewership for this week, Raw averaged 2.92 million viewers, up 12% from last week, and the best viewership since the 20th of August, but nearly a full million viewers short of last year's episode, which drew 3.90 million.
Yikes.
They did have stiffer competition this year, as the Texas Tech versus Virginia finals of the NCAA men's basketball tournament took place during the show. However, this was still a horrible number, especially when you consider that just 4 years ago, they drew 5.14 million viewers for the post-Mania Raw.
What was that 31?
Yeah, it was 31.
So that's Rollins.
Yeah.
And that was a really awesome Raw after Mania as well.
That's a horrendous drop, though. Going from 5.14 to 2.92 in 4 years.
Like, we talk about the company being the draw. I am not being funny. They either need to sort out the company or they need to legitimately focus on building proper stars again, because the company is no longer the draw it once was.
And again, there was a significant drop from hour to hour as people tuned out, with a 3.18 million viewer first hour and only a 2.65 million viewer third hour.
Don't blame people for tuning out. I really don't.
Me neither. And with that, we will move on to SmackDown Live. Kofi and the New Day opened. Biggie does the splits again. I cannot put into words how impressive that is. I know I mentioned it last time.
For such a big man.
But he's a big dude. Have you seen the size of his thighs?
He is a big, strong boy.
He is a very big, strong boy. A big, strong man. So Woods calls Kofi a hero. When New Day got together, they wanted to change things, and Kofi accomplished that on Sunday. Kofi says how incredible this all is, and then the Bar come out and claim to have saved Kofi on Raw because Rollins would have won. They want a 6-man tag, and their partner will be Drew. This was fine and all, but I do find it hilarious that they've spent all of Raw, and I've wrote in my notes at this point, probably will spend all of SmackDown, spoiler alert, they did, pushing the Superstar Shake-Up shows next week, and yet they've basically abandoned the brand split at this point.
Yep.
Like, just people are on all different shows just because...
Just go where you want for a week.
Because reasons.
Reasons. Look, insert blank.
Funnily enough, I've got a funny feeling this podcast is going to be titled Reasons.
Or just insert blank here.
So, next up we had a 6-man tag between Aleister Black, Ricochet, and I nearly said Mustafa Ali again. Every week I try and say Mustafa Ali.
Dude, he's lost the first name.
He's lost his first name.
Just Ali.
Andrade, who's lost his middle and last name. Rusev and Nakamura. The heels isolated Ricochet, but the faces returned fire by isolating Rusev, and we got a triple cross-legged sit down in the ring as we went to break. The heels then isolated Ali, but Black tagged in and destroyed Andrade with strikes and then a Cape Rada. But Rusev and Nakamura made the save. Ricochet sent both to the floor and then took out Rusev, but Nakamura took him out. Black landed Black Mass on Nakamura, but got caught with a step-up elbow from Andrade. Ali tagged in as Black fell backwards. He hit a kick, and then the regular 450 for the win. I wonder why Ali is being stopped from doing the 054. I remember when he first debuted, he injured Bryan with it, but I don't get why he seemingly has been stopped doing it, especially since it's a move he's hit fine for years now on 205 Live. So why have they stopped them doing it? Because it's a really cool move.
Yeah, but most importantly, it makes them stand out because the 450
is kind of overdone.
Yeah, is no longer the move it used to be.
Especially when you're in a match with somebody who can do a 630.
Yeah, it is no longer like, whereas the 054 is challenging because it's a different rotation.
And like I don't know why, but to me it always looks more impactful than a 450.
It does.
I have no idea why, but it always does.
Apart from Austin Aries is 450.
Well, nobody hits a 450 like Austin Aries.
Yeah.
So post-match, Orton RKO's Ali, and then Owen stuns Rusev. Okay, then.
Reasons.
Yeah.
This is.
I mean, you know what? These may go on to be feuds, but it just seems a bit weird on the post sort of SmackDown to be setting up them in this way, where like Orton just comes out of nowhere, and I know that's kind of become his thing now, just to come through the crowd and hit an RKO out of nowhere for a cheap pop. And then, but it was just then Owens came out and stunned Rusev. It wasn't a good looking stunner either. Like Owens fell and Rusev did not go with him.
No, and you need to.
Yeah, and then he did, but nobody was with him at that point, so it just looked like he just jumped onto his knees. But it was a weird setup. I don't know. If that is your way of starting feuds, then I'm sorry. I think you need to come up with new ways of starting feuds.
Like the creativity is just gone at this point. It really is just gone.
They do feel like they're in a real creative
rut.
at
Like
the
they
minute,
just, it's
massively.
like they just can't. Anything that becomes good is not through
overwritten.
but not through their design.
But then they get a hold of anything that gets over
and ruin it.
See Becky Lynch and they overwrite her.
Yeah,
and
then
what made her cool is then not taken away completely, but massively diminished.
Yeah, like Becky's still awesome and she's still really over, but we talked about, remember when she was in the ring with Cena, and we said how she felt like the star in the ring.
Yeah, if you'd put her in the ring with Cena
would be the star
tonight,
again. Yeah.
Cena would be the star.
Yeah, and they've like, I don't know if they just need a total like restructure of the company from the writing staff downwards.
You know what they need? They need proper competition.
And they also need people who know about wrestling involved in the writing of wrestling.
I guarantee they wouldn't be in a creative rut if they had a WCW to go up against at the minute.
They need to be really careful though, because like AEW is, if they get a major network, their roster is already full of people that people are gonna be interested in. Like they need to be careful.
I'm not down on AEW or anything. I've seen so many times people say, "Oh, this is the company that's going to come up and challenge WWE," and they've been on top for so long now that I've kind of just become numb to that idea that somebody can come and challenge them. But that's what they need, because for all these flaws, Vince will not allow himself to go out of business. I just don't believe he would ever get to a point where the WWE would lose a war. But if there was a war, because of that, he would respond in a way that would finally free up some creativity, and I think the shows would be better.
Because at the moment, I'm not being funny, if AEW becomes successful and they continue the way they're going, like WWE would lose that war.
Oh, at the minute,
like they're just atrocious. Like if you had a choice between what we hope the AEW product's going to be and Monday Night Raw, like what would you pick?
They're only scoring goals at the minute because the other team's not playing with a keeper.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the only reason.
Exactly.
Because the shows are not good.
And we're going to have to totally change our podcast.
Truth and Carmella come out. Truth says Carmella defeated Andre the Giant in the Royal Rumble on Sunday. Truth's comedic delivery is second to none.
It is awesome.
Yeah. Joe arrives and murders Truth. He says he took Ray out in less than 60 seconds at Mania and it may take less time with others. Braun arrives. Joe gets the upper hand and locks on the clutch, but Braun powers out and goes for the running power slam, but Joe bails. This was fun.
Yeah, but why was Braun there?
Well, I told you they've abandoned the brand split.
Reasons.
Yeah. But if Braun ends up on SmackDown or Joe ends up on Raw, I'd totally be down for that feud.
Yeah, and so would I, but I wouldn't want either. Neither of them should lose that feud. From a fun point of view, Joe just shouldn't because he's awesome. But Braun really shouldn't. And do you really think Braun should be the US champ?
Did you hear the reaction as well? Like, when Braun came out, he did get a pop when he came out, but when he came down to the ring and he attacked Joe, the crowd kind of booed Braun and cheered Joe.
Because Joe's awesome.
I know.
But, why would Braun be US champ?
I don't know. It's better than being in the pre-show at Mania, mate. Joe was on the main show defending the US Championship in a 60-second match, granted, but he was on the main show. He wasn't in some rubbish battle royal feuding with two comedy guys from a Saturday night show.
And we're led to believe that Braun is like Vince's baby.
So we got more dinosaur action next. Still ludicrous. And then the Iconics are out. and at their nauseating, goofy best.
Oh, I love them so much.
They are fighting champs and will defend against the best tag team they could find, the 45-0 undefeated Brooklyn Bells. Corey was great on commentary during this match. Billy murders Jobber A with a big boot, and then Billy holds her in a glam slam style position for Peyton to hit a knee strike, and that finishes things. I love the Iconics. I love them.
Yeah, so do I.
Paige says next week she'll be bringing a new tag team. I believe she said to face Peyton and Billy, or at least she said that she's bringing a new tag team to SmackDown. I can't remember whether she said to face them or not. Oh, by the way, as well, shout out to the jobbers in this match because they were actually really good in their roles.
Yeah, they were.
Their bumping and their selling was on point, and they did everything they needed to do. If the Rock and Roll Express had got a chance to work with these guys in 1988, they would have been over the moon.
Yes. We shall see who the debut's going to be as well, because obviously there are spoilers coming from NXT that we won't discuss, but there is one person in particular that I'm looking at that could well be on a way up, but there's only one that, as far as I know, that's going to be leaving.
To be honest, I have no idea who it's going to be. I know some people have said you've mentioned the spoilers now, so we're going to have to talk about it. Some people have mentioned the idea that it could be Asuka and Kairi Sane, but it felt like to me that Paige is bringing two new people. That's the way I read what she said, rather than. So I don't know who that would be.
Jessamine and.
I can't see them splitting the horsewomen up, to be honest. And if Shayna's there, they don't need a manager because Shayna can just come down the ring, cut all the promos for them because Shayna's just awesome at everything she does. So
Sky Pirates would be so awesome.
Yeah, like I think Paige as a manager for somebody would be really cool. I'm just not sure she'd fit with the Sky Pirates.
Like she would fit with like the Riot Squad kind of act.
Yeah,
she was with Absolution, wasn't she?
Yeah, with Sonya and
Mandy.
I don't think it was Mandy.
It was Mandy.
Mandy?
Yeah. Which doesn't fit, but
Absolution was such a limp gimmick that I've just totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shane limps, but then does his stupid dance. Just no idea. He brings up Kofi, Seth, and Becky, but says everyone really came to Mania to see him beat The Miz. Nah, mate. Sorry,
No. I mean, if that had been on the later in the show, I would have fallen asleep.
I can suspend my disbelief, but you telling me that everybody who came to Mania came to watch you just breaks my disbelief. Sorry.
Yeah, it's got to be at least sometimes realistic, hasn't it?
Yeah. So Miz is taking care of his injured father and isn't here tonight. Shane says he was just defending himself. Miz and his dad got what they had coming. Shane was not impressed with Greg's announcement of him as best in the world when he first came out. Greg says fans are threatening him over it, but Shane doesn't care and he makes him do it again. He bullies Greg, grabs him by the tie and drags him all around the arena until Greg finally gets it right and Shane leaves. Well, this was there. I'm just so over Shane as an on-screen character. Can we just please move on?
Which is so weird, because do you remember when Shane came back?
But you know what? Babyface, what was the name they had for them? Commissioner Shane. I actually thought was really cool.
Yeah,
like,
with Brian, nice. With Brian as the
because it was nice to see babyface authority figures, because all we see is heel authority figures for year on year. So that was a nice change of pace. But you know, Shane's not bad in his role as a heel. Like, some of the things he does are very good classic heel things. I just don't want to see him.
No. Can we please get Drake Maverick just in charge of the whole company?
Yeah.
There's just the
just
GM
the overarching
like the commissioner. Be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, totally down with that. So next up, we had the Tag Team Championship match as the Usos defended against the Hardys. The champs isolate Matt until he hits a desperation DDT and gets a hot tag to Jeff. Jeff cleans house and hits Whisper in the Wind for 2. Matt comes back in and they hit Poetry in Motion. The side effect gets 2, but Jimmy hits a super kick on both Hardys. Jay hits a Superfly Splash for 2, and then they go for the Big Oos Splash, but miss. Matt tags in and the crowd sends a title change. Matt goes for Twist of Fate, but it's countered, but then manages to hit it. Jeff hits a Swanton, and we have new champs. This was good, and with a bit longer, it could have been great. I don't know why, if they were going to change the titles and put them on the Hardys, why didn't you just do the Usos versus the Hardys at Mania? Like, that fatal four-way for the tag titles came out of nowhere, and you know what, the match was good.
But pointless.
But you could have given the Hardys their moment at Mania if you wanted to, if you were just going to put the belts on them. I just don't know why they didn't do it at Mania.
Yeah, agreed.
But this was one of the best things on either show this week. I know we give Taker our segment of the week, but this is probably the second best thing I'd seen up until this point.
Yeah, I agree. This is fine. I'll wait and see where they go with it. It seems a bit out of nowhere.
It does, but
But it's the Hardys.
The Hardys always have credibility because they are the Hardys. It's not like you've just thrown some random team in, like Hawkins and Ryder. I have more of a problem with, because they were on TV for a week and then they've done nothing with them. And then all of a sudden they just come out of nowhere and you're meant to buy them as a big tag team. The Hardys have been doing nothing, but they're the freaking Hardys.
Yeah, and I always like the Hardys as champs. I think this could be a feud moving forward, which would be really interesting. The Usos and the Hardys for a month or so at least. So it could be quite good. How many times champs are the Hardys now?
No, God knows.
Is it like...
Must be double digits, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome if they broke the Dudleys record? Or how many have they got, though?
It depends on what record
What
you're
you
talking
count.
about, because I remember when they were in TNA, they'd always talk about how they were like 28-time champs because they counted all the ECW reigns and TNA reigns and stuff like that. So I don't know who has the record, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Either way, it was cool.
So the match was great, but post-match, Lars destroys both Hardys. Well, that sure makes the champs look great. I know they just had a match, but like, they've just won the tag belts, and I know we've just said they're the Hardys and they have ultimate credibility, but why just have Lars just come out and destroy your tag champs? Like, I don't get it.
Again, with the Angle thing, was there no one else backstage that could have gone out there just to cut a random promo and then after 2 minutes or 30 seconds send Lars out there to kill him?
This company employs Jinder Mahal.
And Shelton Benjamin. Yeah.
Like, just have them destroy them.
Just send the Sings, or better yet, send the Sings out there to cut a promo about how they're angry that Jinder wasn't more heavily featured on Mania, and then I just have Lars. That'd be babyface though.
But if you wanted to be a babyface, this company employs No Way Jose.
Yeah,
there are options out there.
Yeah,
you don't have to destroy Kurt Angle on his way out and the Hardys.
What do you call them? Job
enhancement talent. The talent who are out there to enhance other people.
Yeah, and do the jobbers. Yeah. That's the word I'm looking for. So anyway, Becky is out next. She's the champ, and Becky 2 belts. She tried to celebrate on Raw, but Lacey ruined things, but that's okay. He reminded her she is a target, and she welcomes that. She wants to pull double duty and have her run be the most talked about in history. Lacey happens and lays her out with the woman's right as Becky went to leave. Again, this was fine. A bit of a rehash, but this time Lacey got the upper hand. I liked Becky's promo better than Raw. It was fine. I don't know why, but I'd missed the thing about Becky doing double duty. Yeah, I really like that line. That's going to be interesting. Do you remember when Lethal became TV and world champ as well, when briefly. He beat Jay Briscoe and he was defending them on both pay-per-views? Seth did it briefly as well when he was US. Yeah, for one show. Yeah, but that went well. The thing is, you've got to be careful how you book it, because I always thought that made Sting look terrible because he came out and lost to a guy who'd just been beat by John Cena. Yeah. So you have got to be careful how you book it, but I do like the idea of somebody pulling double duty. One thing is, there'd been rumours of a belt coming out that was just going to be like the women's title, and that would appear to be now not happening. It would appear to be like she's legitimately double champion. Who knows at this point? It's the book show to show anyway. She might just be one champion next week and we all forget she ever had 2 belts. Yeah. She'll call herself Becky 1 belt. So next up we had New Day versus Sheamus, Cesaro and Drew McIntyre. Sammy arrived before the match started, said the fans aren't worth it and left. Okay. Big E shows some strength with his suplexes and hits the running splash. Cesaro cut off the suicide spear and goes for a crossbody. Big E tries to catch him but totally messes it up. Cesaro and Sheamus hit the double team air raid crash. Sheamus then cut off Xavier and went for the brogue kick on Big E, but he ate a lariat instead. And E tagged in Kofi, who hit the standing variant of high fly floor before taking out Cesaro with the Tope trust fall. He hits Trouble in Paradise for the win. This was okay, but felt massively short of time. Like the show had ran long or something and they had to cut time from the main event. And then Kofi and his family celebrated post-match. Fine, but also kind of pointless. Yeah. Like this is why, they used to have on the Raw After Mania, it's legitimately hot main event segments. And now we've had the Raw and the SmackDown After Mania pretty much for 2 years running now, just have really flat matches for the main events. I feel like there's only a certain amount of feuds you can set up on the post-Mania Raw with, again, the Superstar shake-up being just round the corner, because you can't set up feuds between people who aren't yet on the same brand, so you can only set up feuds between people are staying. Mm-hmm. That takes a lot away, because a lot of what used to make the post-Mania shows cool was you'd see all these new feuds, because generally
Mania's a feud ender, so this is the one time of the year where you see loads of feuds start at the same time.
You're right, but even then, a lot of times what would happen, like further back than like NXT and all of that, is that they'd do the rematch for the title,
Yeah.
and then there'd be some kind of late DQ finish, but you'd see the match long enough that it wouldn't irritate and annoy the crowd and upset the crowd.
I kind of hate that though, when you do a long match and do a DQ at the end of it.
Same, but it was the classic thing that at least you give the crowd what they're looking for rather than a throwaway 6-man.
Well, anything would have been better than the 2 main events they did, because it didn't feel special at all.
Nope.
I thought SmackDown was fine, but again, did not feel nearly as special as we've got accustomed to these shows being.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And SmackDown viewership. It fared no better than Raw. It actually probably fared worse in the viewership stakes, as the show dropped 26% year on year, averaging just 2.20 million viewers, only slightly up from last week's 2.14 million. They also only retained 75% of Raw's audience, with noticeably less competition.
I feel like viewership, when we get to like the lull, probably it's going to be after Money in the Bank this year, we've talked about, like, do you
How
not
bad
think
is it
that
gonna be?
viewership's going to crash?
Yeah.
The way it's going, and the peaks and troughs, but we've not had the peak that we usually have. Like, I have a weird feeling that viewership is going to collapse.
My big question is, are we going to get to the point where they're getting lower ratings than TNA were getting?
Possibly.
You
Like,
know?
genuinely.
'Cause
Like,
the joke for a long time was TNA would get a 1.0 or a 1.1, and I think at that time it was like between 1.6 and 1.8 million viewers. SmackDown's already been doing that. How long until we see Raw get there? Not regularly, but SmackDown will occasionally hit sort of the 1.8. They've usually been a bit higher than that, but when we hit the lull this year,
they're going to get there.
like, what's going to be 1.5 million viewers, 1.4? Who knows at this point? And they're going to Fox in October.
This is the problem. Like, financially, the company's fine. But in terms of its TV show, like, it's as bad as it's ever been.
It's only fine, though, because they are getting so much money from their TV revenue. And the thing is,
That'll only go so long.
eventually, they're going to have to renegotiate those deals.
Is this the worst things have ever been since we've been alive?
Well, we were alive for the new generation,
But I don't know it.
I didn't really start watching until like 90, 96, 97, whenever Mania 13 was. So I don't know. Probably.
It's the worst I can remember since I've been actively watching regularly.
So with that, we'll move on to something awesome. NXT. We recapped the awesome, incredible Takeover show to open and got the awesome new NXT theme before the show kicked off properly. Don't say anything. It's an awesome theme.
Don't like Slipknot. But it's major that they've done that.
So we opened with Candice LeRae versus Aaliyah. They botched a spot early where Aaliyah tried to attack Candice after a distraction from Vanessa Bourne at ringside, but had failed to allow the distraction to actually take place first, so had to lie back down again and wait for the actual right moment. That was kind of funny. Candice went for a lion salt but almost slipped, and as a result overshot Aaliyah somewhat. Thankfully everyone seemed just about okay. This was really not good though.
No, it wasn't good either.
We got a recap of Dream versus Riddle, and then Dream cut a mobile phone promo from during WrestleMania. Buddy Murphy walked past and Dream mocked him, saying it was the face of someone who couldn't handle the spotlight. Murphy said his was the face of someone who just stole the show, and Dream told him to go watch Riddle versus Dream from Takeover if he wanted to see show stealing. This was good, and if we get Murphy versus Dream out of this, which, spoiler alert, later in the show they announced it's going to be taking place next week, I'm so down for that match. It's going to be awesome.
So am I, absolutely.
We recapped War Raiders versus Black and Ricochet and Kushida's crowd appearance from Takeover before seeing a press conference where Kushida signed his WWE contract as Hunter and Regal put him over. This was fine.
Yeah, it was. And they also, on the actual YouTube channel for the Performance Center, they posted a video where they referred to New Japan Pro Wrestling when they were talking about Kushida as well, which I thought was quite interesting.
That is interesting. Next up, we had Jackson Riker versus Danny Burch. Burch and Riker went back and forth early until the Forgotten Sons tried to get involved. Burch avoided both of them and Lorcan wiped them out with his out-of-control Topicon Hello. Riker went for a fireman's carry slam, but Burch cradled him for two. Riker hit the Widowmaker for the win. He tried to beat Burch down post-match, but only cut him off until the rest of the Forgotten Sons beat them down. This was fine, but it's the Forgotten Sons.
I do think Oni needs to be either babyface or heel across. Like, he's babyface in NXT and then very much a heel in 205 Live. Like, they need to sort that out, the consistency.
Yeah. We recapped the Women's Championship match from TakeOver. Sarah Schreiber interviewed Shayna backstage, and she said it doesn't matter how many women you throw at her, she will beat them.
She's awesome.
We then recapped Dunn versus Walter, and then Dunn was interviewed backstage about his feelings. He simply said there would be a rematch, and I look forward to that very much.
So do I.
They did mention, and I can't remember what show it was on, I think it was 205 Live, they mentioned this week that everybody's up for the Superstar Shake-Up, so it's
champs.
like NXT you can move from NXT to the main roster, you can move from 205 Live to the main roster, and the interesting one is you can move from NXT UK to the main roster. And I feel like they probably wouldn't say that if there wasn't at least one person coming from NXT UK. And if anybody's coming from NXT UK, surely it's Pete Dunne.
Or Mustache Mountain.
Surely it's Pete Dunne, though.
Or if it's only one, like I said on the podcast, didn't I? It should be Pete Dunne. But if it's more than one, I wouldn't be against them bringing up all of British Strong Style.
Oh, without doubt. They're all ready. We recapped the NXT Championship match from TakeOver, and then we saw Undisputed Era backstage arguing after the match. Cole seemed to be blaming Roddy for the loss. Please, 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 do not break up Undisputed Era or change the group in any way. Just leave them be. It doesn't need to happen. I don't need to see Roddy as a mid-card babyface. Just keep them together, please, because they are absolutely awesome at everything they do.
The main thing is just not before the main roster. Like, they need to get to the main roster
intact
in that act, because on the main roster they'll be huge.
So, like I said earlier, Velveteen versus Buddy Murphy for the North American Championship will take place next week. And then our main event of the evening was Street Profits versus the European Union. Montez botched a flip early on, but they recovered well. The EU dominated the middle stages, isolating Montez forward, but he eventually got the hot tag to Angelo Dawkins, and he ran wild after hitting sort of a pound-style move, sending Bartel into Eichner. Ford tagged himself in as the Street Profits went for their Doomsday Blockbuster move, but Eichner and Bartel took them both out and isolated Ford again. They hit a double corner dropkick on him, and Eichner followed up with a brainbuster. Bartel hit a tope suicida on Dawkins, and Eichner hit the double springboard moonsault for a really nice near fall. The EU went for a powerbomb uppercut combo, but Ford ducked and Bartel ate canvas. Dawkins then hit a spear on Eichner, who was still holding Ford at that point. Dawkins tagged in, and they hit the Doomsday Blockbuster for the win. This was good, but I'd really like to see these times get more time, especially Eichner and Bartel, because they're great.
Yeah, I really do think Eichner and Bartel need more of a push. Like we've just said before we started recording, how we would love to see the European Union get a shot against War Raiders. Like, that match should be unreal. And I know Street Profits are getting a bit more of a push, but I see much, much, much more potential in Eichner and Bartel, and I don't know if that's I
really like both teams, and I think Street Profits are probably considerably more charismatic, whereas Eichner and Bartel are considerably more talented in the ring, although Montez Ford is a freak. But I see a lot in both teams, so please just push both of them. Yeah. Push both. I thought this was a good episode. I know it was really recap heavy, and the opening match kind of sucked, but I thought it was we got a lot of little tidbits with the Undisputed Era stuff, as much as I'm like, oh, please don't do anything. And sort of the Dream Buddy stuff was all good. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in this show, considering it was just kind of a recap show.
Yeah, NXT, fantastic as always.
And with that, we'll move on to 205 Live. We opened with a recap of Sunday's match for the Cruiserweight title, and we are getting a rematch tonight. But we're opening with Humberto Carrillo versus Jack Gallagher. I was surprised we were getting this match already, because at first I thought they'd turned and Humberto was opposite Gallagher and Gulak, but they kind of explained that this is a teaching moment, if you like. They chain wrestled early and did some nice, really nice sort of lucha stuff. Humberto went to the top, but it cost him as Gallagher dropped him on the ropes. Gulak was awesome on commentary during this match, and commentary played up how maybe Humberto was learning more from Gallagher than Gulak. Humberto fought back and hit a Frosbury flop to the outside and rolled Gallagher back in. He hit a top rope dropkick for 2, and then Carrillo hit a nice handspring lucha arm drag. He went up top, but this frustrated Gulak, who left commentary and pushed Humberto off the top rope for the DQ. He beat Carrillo down post-match until Gallagher made the save and headbutted Gulak out of the ring. This was unexpected, but an awesome turn for Gallagher. Very good match, great all-round segment.
Yeah, I thought this was a great segment. If Taker hadn't been there's a good chance this would have been segment of the week, to be honest. This was fantastic. It was a swerve, but a swerve that I liked.
Yeah, and it wasn't a swerve that didn't make any sense, because they had played up, especially on commentary during this match, and now we look back, we see all these
Gallagher
segments backstage. Gallagher's been the one with Carrillo, not Gulak.
and I prefer Gallagher as a babyface anyway. I think he's done
Me
some really
too.
good work as a heel.
Totally agree with you on that
But
one.
but his character's just so much fun. The gentleman Jack Gallagher.
Yeah.
I think he's great as a babyface, and I'm looking forward to seeing now what Gulak does, because in theory Gulak should now recruit someone, and the one who may fit in terms of how they wrestle would be Oney Lorcan. And obviously Gulak and they were a tag team
They
on the
were
Indies.
in PWG, yeah, I remember them being a tag team. I don't think it's going to be Lorcan.
You think it's going to be Davari, don't you?
I don't know who it's going to be. I do think he'll recruit somebody. I don't know who it's going to be, but I don't think it'll be Lorcan. I think they see Gulak as sort of the anchor man for the mid-card of 205 Live, and I think they see bigger things in Lorcan. And I think he's going to be pushed as such.
Quite possibly.
So Buddy said on Sunday, Nice stopped the unstoppable, but tonight he will prove he is the greatest cruiserweight of all time when he gets his championship back. And then we cut to Nice, who talked about how he achieved his dream on Sunday and said Buddy will never take this championship from him. He said once again he's going to stop the unstoppable. This is fine build for the main event.
Yeah, and like I'm at the point now where I love these two, so I was really looking forward to this match.
Drake was backstage with Oney Lorcan. He wanted to talk about next week, but Cedric popped in. He assumes this meeting is about Cedric versus Oney, so thought he would drop by. Drake confirms this and allows Cedric to leave, but before he can, Oney says, Cedric once said this division would be Oney's one day, so to be the man, you've got to beat the man, and next week, that is exactly what he plans to do.
Woo!
Yeah, the crowd did woo a lot during this, yeah. And next up it was our main event, as Tony Nese defended his newly won Cruiserweight Championship against Buddy Murphy. Murphy flipped over Nese in the early goings and acted like he had tweaked his knee, but it was of course a ruse, and as soon as Nese turned his back, Murphy sent Nese into the post. Murphy beat Nese down on the outside and beeled him over the announce desk. Back in, he hit a beautiful V-trigger for 2, followed by a running suplex for 2. Murphy then hit a beautiful tope con hilo on Nese and followed up with a top rope Meteora for 2. Murphy went to the top and Nese caught him with a palm strike that sent Murphy into the barricade at ringside. Murphy tried to get back in, but Nese hit a guillotine leg drop over the ropes and followed up with a Fosbury flop to the outside as the crowd chanted 205. Nese considered throwing Murphy back in, but decided to exact his revenge from earlier and threw Murphy into the barricades and over the announce table as Murphy had done to him. Murphy cut Nese off up top and went for the Chicago skyline, but Nese fought out and hit a leaping Hurricane Rana for 2. Murphy went for the Ibushi German, but Nese crotched him across the ropes and hit the springboard moonsault for a near fall. Nese hit the pump handle driver for 2, and then Murphy caught Nese with cheeky Nandos and hit a running powerbomb for 2. He went for the Kamagoye, but Nese caught the knee. He hit a turnbuckle suplex and went for running Nese, but Murphy avoided it and pulled Nese to the apron and hit a V-trigger on the apron. Murphy looked for a move on the announce desk, but Nese was limp. Murphy rolled in the ring to break the count. When he came back, Nese back body dropped him onto the announce table. Murphy made it back into the ring at 9.5 to the almighty applause of the audience. We're really feeling like Japanese people recently.
Aye, keep it going.
They traded strikes until Nese hit a super kick, but Murphy responded with a murderous lariat and then hit Stormbreaker for 2. He followed up with Murphy's Law, but Nese kicked out at 2. Murphy hit 2 Kamagoyes, but Nese reversed a suplex attempt into a Poison Rana. He hit running Nese and then a V-trigger version of running Nese for the pin and the win. This was great and an upgrade on the already very good match they had on Sunday. If this was Murphy's 205 Live swan song, which it certainly felt like, it was a great way to go out.
Just absolutely fantastic. Like these two are two of the best wrestlers that they've got at the moment.
And they could have a match together in their sleep.
They honestly, they could. It feels like it. I loved this. It was just out of this world good. What did we expect though? Like, out of these two.
Yeah.
And I just to it is like I know we love NXT, but NXT is objectively the best hour of wrestling on TV.
I think it is, yeah.
But when you think about where 205 Live has gone from and what it is now, like I have such an emotional attachment to 205 Live as a TV show. I just hope it keeps going because I love it.
Me too. Thought this was another fun episode with one good match, one great match, a surprise turn, and 3 entertaining backstage segments. Everything you want out of a wrestling show.
What more could you want from an hour of wrestling?
Actually, this was the best post-Mania show probably in terms of feeling like a post-Mania show.
Yeah, I agree. Like how much that show has turned around since Hunter took over.
Massively.
It's so much better.
And with that, I think it's time we move to any other business. So New Japan's announced the lineups for the Dontaku tour, And the highlight matches of the tour for me are Kota Ibushi defending the Intercontinental Championship against Zack Sabre Jr. on the 20th of April, Dragon Lee defending the Junior Heavyweight title against Taiji Ishimori on the 3rd of May, Tomohiro Ishii facing Evil, and Kazuchika Okada defending his IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Sonata, both those matches on the 4th of May. It's not a standout tour, I wouldn't say, but those 4 matches really look good. And you've also got the likes of Hiroki Goto versus Jay White, which should be cool as well. So there is other cool stuff in there, but those 4 are the ones that stood out to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a standout tour in terms of massive matches. The one that stands out the most to me, just because I think it's going to be unbelievably
Ibushi
good,
Sabre?
is Ibushi Sabre. Like, that could be a match of the year contender, like, genuinely. But that's just because they're building to the later cards. Later on in the summer, there's no point in them blowing their load now when they've got the bigger matches and the bigger events.
You've got Dominion
this
coming
summer.
up, you've got G1, you've got
Dominion
King of Pro Wrestling.
Dominion is the card to come up.
Yeah.
And they've got to build.
It's their SummerSlam, isn't it?
Yeah, they have got to build and wait for that. So, like, this is always not a down period or anything like that, but they always put in, like, their
secondary matches.
Their
almost.
B+ matches.
Yeah. And we've also had the Crockett Cup lineups announced. So Nick Aldis is defending the NWA World Heavyweight Championship against Marty Scurll.
Awesome. I hadn't seen this.
And then we've got Block A and Block B. So Block A, we will see Satoshi Kojima and Yuji Nagata versus PCO and Brody King, which will be cool. And we will also see the Briscoes in the other match in Block A versus the Rock and Roll Express.
Oh, wow. Rock and Roll are going to die, aren't they?
Well, I really hope they don't do too much, because Ricky and Robert are not spring chickens anymore. But
the Briscoes and the NWA seem like just two things that, like...
I don't know,
These two things do not match.
I could have seen them as a heel team in the 80s,
Yeah.
Like the sheep herders sort of style.
True.
Dick Murdoch was in the NWA, don't forget. And in Block B, we've got Flip Gordon and Bandito versus Stuka Jr. and Guerrero Maya Jr. And then Jack Stain and Crimson versus the winners of a wildcard battle royale that will take place that night.
Crimson
Block
as
A,
in TNA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Block A significantly excites me more than Block B.
Yeah, me too.
Just throwing it out there. Although Flip Gordon and Bandito versus Stuka and Guerrero Maya will be really cool as well, actually.
Yeah.
And that's all we've got for any other business this week, so we will move on to the final segment. And I think what we talked about doing, given how blown away we were by how good TakeOver was, do you want to do our favourite NXT TakeOver moments of all time?
Yep, I think that's a good thing to go for, just because TakeOver was so awesome. So do you want to go first?
Well, I'll just go for the thing that made me think of this being our final segment of the week, and that's Johnny Gargano winning the NXT Championship at the show just gone from Friday, because I thought that was awesome, blow away good. The moment with Ciampa at the end was amazing, and just seeing Johnny Gargano finally climb that mountain was really special.
I'm going to go for something along similar lines in terms
I wonder where you're going for. We're going December 2014 here by any chance?
In terms of watching someone finally climb the mountain. NXT TakeOver, Our Evolution, for a long time my favourite TakeOver.
Until Friday, my favourite TakeOver.
Yeah. Sami Zayn against Neville. Well, Adrian Neville.
He still had his first name at that point.
Yeah, he hadn't lost it either. For the NXT Championship, Neville was working the Shades of Grey champion character where he'd do whatever he had to do to win, and Zayn had always just come up short, just like Johnny Gargano.
You just always remember the spot that, smarty crowds are always given sort of hassle for cheering the heels when they should cheer the babyfaces. And I'll never forget the spot in that match where Sammy's got the title in his hands and he's looking at Neville, and everyone's going, no.
Because we don't want to see our good guy become a bad guy.
Exactly. And that was how good that story was. Like, unbelievable. Totally agree.
And then I'll also just add in a little bit at the end. Obviously, after a great match, Sami Zayn wins, and his bestest friend in the world, Kevin Owens, comes out and is so happy and celebrates with him, and then powerbombs him into the apron.
Yeah. It's a shame we never got a proper conclusion.
It is a shame.
Well, I'm going to go for Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks from TakeOver Unstoppable, I believe was the show. This was the moment that I think made Becky in NXT.
Gave her a character as well.
She came out with a new look, and her and Sasha had what I think is a really underrated match, and just sort of blew the house down. The crowd chanted Becky's theme to her after the match, as she was sort of upset because she lost the match in the ring. And that was the moment where I've always been a massive fan of Becky Lynch, but that was the moment where I like she clicked in NXT, and very quickly she then clicked on the main roster in a similar vein. So that was a really special moment for me, seeing her finally break out in NXT.
Right, I'm going to go with the debut of Shinsuke Nakamura against Sami Zayn at the Takeover Mania a couple of years ago. I forget which Takeover it was.
Yeah, I can't remember where they were, but... And was it Takeover Dallas, possibly?
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah, but obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, like for the longest time, I still think he is now to some extent, Shinsuke Nakamura was my favourite wrestler in the whole wide world, just because I'd loved him since 2009, since I really got into New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Nakamura was my favourite for the whole of that time, in his various characters. And it was so awesome seeing him against Sami Zayn in what I still believe is a 5-star match. I know Dave Meltzer did not report it as such. I believe he gave it 4 3/4, didn't he?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but either way, like to me, that's a 5-star match. It was absolute perfection, constant, just balls to the wall. It was absolutely perfect, and it just showed that, because people had always said, would Nakamura translate to an American audience? And I'd always said, yeah, of course he would, because charisma gets over. And charisma should still get over Vince McMahon, but yeah.
So I'm going to go for Takeover Toronto, DIY, defeat the Revival in just... It's possibly my favourite tag match in recent memory. I can't think of anything that was to that level in recent memory in terms of tag team wrestling. And it was just an incredible match. The moment of DIY finally reaching the pinnacle and finally, winning gold in NXT. These two guys who'd only been brought in to kind of fill spots in a dusty classic tournament were never meant to be with the company full time, and just got over and were brought in and had finally reached the pinnacle of tag team wrestling in NXT. And there's that moment at the end where they both have the finishes on either member of the Revival, and the Revival are grabbing each other's hands, trying to stop each other tapping, and then at the same moment they just both cannot take the pain anymore and both tap, and the crowd goes wild. It's just awesome.
Right, I'm going to go with NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Sasha Banks defending the NXT Women's Championship against our friendly neighbourhood Bayley. This was just, I think it's more for the moment than the match itself, but that should not... I see your face.
I still think that's the best women's match I've ever seen in WWE.
I'm not saying it should take away from the match. The match itself was unbelievable and brilliant, and I'm not saying anything bad about it because it was great. It was the moment for me. Sasha Banks was like just amazing at that point. What's happened since, God only knows. Bayley was amazing at that point.
Bayley. Yeah.
God only knows what's happened to her since, and the match itself was unbelievable, back and forth. Awesome heel work from Sasha throughout, and just Bayley just being the plucky underdog, will not die. And then the ending of all 4 of them stood there, throwing up the 4 horsewomen sign, and it just felt like a watershed moment, that where they finally showed we'd always known they were good, but like it was the defining moment for that division.
You want to go one more each?
One more each, while I think.
I'm going to go with the debut of Samoa Joe in NXT. When he came out, I believe it was the end of an Owens-Zayn match. I'm not sure which one it was, because they did 2 Owens-Zayn matches for the title. I'm not sure whether it was the one where Owens had originally won the title or whether it was the one where he retained. I think it was the one where he retained. And after the match, he's beaten Zayn down, and all of a sudden this music just hit, and Samoa Joe came out. And for some reason, that was bigger to me than any real signing that they had made, because I never ever, of all the people that signed that, I was like, God, I never thought they'd sign them. Joe was probably the top of that list. I never thought they'd sign Samoa Joe.
Just didn't look like one of their guys.
Yeah, and they brought him in, and I was like, this is awesome. And I remember not being blown away by Owen Zayn because of the story they tried to tell in the match. And I think Zayn was actually injured, because it was the rematch, wasn't it? So
he
Zayn
was injured.
Legitimately injured, so there was only so much that they could do. And then just think that's a bit of a letdown as the end of a takeover, and then Joe came out, and I was just like, never mind, NXT know what they're doing.
Do you remember at first that Joe was on like an NXT only contract, but got so over that it was like, well,
he was still allowed to work indies. He worked in, like, he wasn't allowed to work shows that were like pay-per-views or anything like that were televised. So he had to work a dark match, but him and AJ faced Daniels and Kazarian on an ROH show.
Yeah.
Like while he was in NXT.
Right,
Crazy.
I'm gonna get a few obvious ones out the way before I kind of go in depth with my big one. I'm gonna mention obviously Ciampa's heel turn against Gargano. That's a fairly obvious one. The first NXT takeover, the ladder match between Neville and Bo. I think that's something we've just got to
Technically, that
mention.
wasn't a takeover. Technically, it was NXT Arrival.
Oh yeah, it was, of course. All right, picky. But
It's a takeover, really.
yeah. Takeover London as well for pure specialness because we were there for the whole of that show, which was brilliant.
Zayn returning. I know technically it was for the NXT that followed, but Zayn returning on that show was a really special moment for us.
It was awesome. And obviously, Joe against Balor in the main event, which is what I'm going to lead into, what I'm going to talk about. We were both split. Joe was your guy. Balor was my guy.
And we were just chanting for both guys.
Yeah. So, now leading into the one I'm going to go for, it is again from NXT TakeOver, Our Evolution. And the match itself is not fantastic, but the moment itself is more important. The debut of the Demon in NXT. Balor debuted a couple of weeks before, coming out to be announced as Itami's tag partner, and he then revealed he was going to be bringing his dark side, and I think we all knew that meant that it wasn't called the Demon then, but the body paint was going to come out, and we all saw that, and it came out, and it was more and more unique and original than it had ever been in New Japan, because in New Japan it was always like comic book characters like Carnage, for example, that were used. This was unique, it was different. The entrance got over, like the crowd was chanting words that we can't say at it within like seconds. It was just awesome. The match itself was actually okay, like one of Ascension's probably better matches ever.
Yeah.
And because like if Nakamura has always been like my guy, like my favorite wrestler, like Balor was always like my like 1B. If Nakamura was the 1A. So it was special for me to see that as well. And it was just, so cool.
But I think there's many more NXT TakeOver moments we've
forgotten some, like American Alpha beating Revival.
Yeah, every TakeOver is full of amazing moments, and I've never seen a bad TakeOver. The worst TakeOvers are very good shows, and the best TakeOvers are absolutely brilliant shows. And I think if you've got any NXT moments you'd like to tell us about, you just feel free to comment below, because we'd love to hear about them, because I guarantee there's going to be some we've missed.
Or if you were at TakeOver London as well, like we were, like tell us where you were sat, what your favourite match was, anything like that, because there's a shot that they always show from
the back of the arena.
From the back of the arena, you can actually see the back of mine Adam's heads from that camera shot, which we're always very proud of, because they always show it.
For whatever reason, they always use that specific angle.
They do?
Yeah.
Was it during the Balor entrance?
I'm not
that's
sure
why.
when it was. Yeah.
I think maybe during Balor where everyone's put their arms out. I think that may be why they always show it.
Right. Either way, I think that does us for this week. Anything you'd like to add before we go?
No, it's been the end of a very, very long week of wrestling, but
yeah, I think we've done 4 shows in 6 days.
Yeah, we are now returning back to normality.
Yeah.
So
we'll be back next week as usual. So we'll join us next Friday for another episode of the Two Man Booth. Anything you'd like to say before we get out of here, Jonathan?
No, I think everything's good.
Sorry, we're out of time. We'll see you next week on the Two Man Booth.